Hello, and welcome to It's Already In You podcast. We are your hosts, Liz
and Janine, nutrition and movement experts, mothers and business owners obsessed with helping you quiet the noise of diet culture.
Seeing through the false advertising and promises of our food and fitness industries, helping you discover that everything you need to upgrade your health and well-being is already in you. Hey guys, we are here today to talk about, I think, something that we all participate in probably on some level, social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or just the World Wide Web, Google. We have it at our fingertips often through the day, obviously some more than others. And this is where we get information, whether it's true, false, personal experiences, whatever it may be. This is the source of much of where we're learning stuff, discovering stuff, buying products, being influenced, right? And there are so many awesome things that can come from more information, from motivation, from learning from each other. But they are also a lot of misinformation. There is also a lot of people taking roles and taking influential positions that don't have the credentials to do so. They're maybe speaking more from their own personal lived experience, or they are being hired by a company that's paying them. They are essentially actors, right? Just like we would see on a commercial or TV. And so we wanted to talk about that today because we know that that influences many of our decisions when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to fitness, when it comes to lifestyle. We hear this all the time. Well, I saw this ad, or I, saw this person that looked really great and they were, living this healthy lifestyle. And if they're doing it, maybe it would work for me, or let me purchase this product because the purchase button is right in my face saying all of the keywords of how I want to feel and how I want to look.
Yes.
And so we want to talk about that today. We don't want to, say that social media is bad or that, all of this information is harmful, but you need to put on your critical thinking, investigative glasses when you're weeding through it. So Janine,
Yes.
What is something that you see often when it comes to social media and how it impacts maybe you or the clients you're dealing with?
Well, I think first we can say it targets you specifically, right? If you're spending time Googling things about weight loss or menopause or how to get rid of belly fat, or
anything, how
to start thinking, or if you say something out loud oh, I've been so absent-minded lately, or sadly the phones are listening to us and they're picking these things up, right? And next thing you know, it's if you want to focus more, if you want, and you have all of this what you're most vulnerable about, you have being marketed to you.
Yeah.
It's almost like the perfect storm, right? I always tell the story about after having a baby, you're feeling super vulnerable about the way that you look, the way that you feel. Your hormones are going crazy. You're kind of sad because you think, oh, is my body going to come back to the way it was? You're feeling sad because your life is changing a little bit. As ecstatic and happy as you are, things are changing, right? And when I had my first daughter, there wasn't social media, but there was infomercials.
Yeah.
And I sound like I'm 100.
You're not.
I'm not.
You're not. It happens
I'm not
very
that old,
fast.
But social media has only been around for what, 10?
Yes.
15 years. And my daughter is 19. So obviously I didn't have the influence of social media at this time, but I did have infomercials and advertisements and magazines. We talk about you could put down the magazine or throw away the magazine or shut off the TV, but I think social media is different. It's almost like if you go on to post something, if you do something for your work or for business or for your children, it's there.
Yeah.
It's like the first thing you see when you turn on the phone is an ad or marketing or, an influencer saying something or somebody really cute or,
Yeah.
really exciting or, sending you a message that I have your answers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's scary and exciting and upsetting all at the same time, right? And I think it's important to point out that you and I have these conversations and we're like, we're the educated ones.
Yeah.
We're the ones that do critically think about this stuff and we're still vulnerable to it.
Absolutely.
So it's like, it's so scary because when we're talking to clients, like, you want to say like, oh, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I think one day I was like, oh, like my arms are starting to get really dry or creepy. Like I feel like I see that I'm getting older and my skin all of a sudden. I had about, I want to say 50
Yeah.
cream advertisements all of a sudden flooding my phone, Instagram, all of the things.
So weird.
And I'm like, and if you're somebody who does things like spontaneously, right? Like all this spontaneous purchasing, it's not only is it upsetting because it ends up not working, right? Like you think that they make you feel like it's going to, but now you're spending all this money on things that you could like spend your, and if you follow Mel Robbins, the podcaster, I love her. She's great, but she just did a podcast on stop spending your money on things that you don't need, you know? And it's so hard. I found myself like literally I am so hypnotized by Instagram marketing.
Yeah. I mean, it's people, very, very smart people who have a lot of research into the human brain and how it ticks that's leading these advertising companies so that we essentially get sucked in, brainwashed, whatever it may be, but that our attention is captivated. I mean, we all have probably been in a situation where we're scrolling and then we put our head up 20 minutes later and you're like, where'd I just go?
Yeah, where'd I go?
Because you're being pulled in. And like you said, I was definitely like as a teenager, a magazine person. I can remember picking up the magazines like at the People, OK, Us, and remembering making a conscious decision at one point, maybe in my early 20s, being like, this is not healthy for me because I was looking at celebrities, Britney Spears, Nicole Richie, like their body types. And like and there were ads right after that was like a diet pill or Slim Fast or like whatever was happening at that time. And I can remember it not feeling at a certain point productive or healthy for me. And I just stopped buying them. Like I could simply like abstain. But social media is really hard to abstain from because it also connects us, because it also does give us some good information. It also provides like arms and legs for a lot of businesses. You're proud of your kids. You want to share that they won a championship or they just started walking with your family, that you're friends with or whatever. So it is harder to abstain completely from it. So to me, that means that we need to start putting the decision-making back in our own pocket, in our own home, in our own phone, because the very, very smart people who are making a lot of this noise, let's call it, is not going to. It's probably just going to continue to build unless you say, you know what, this doesn't serve me. I'm going to try to approach my relationship with social media a little differently.
I think it's interesting that you just said, because I've been very maybe jealous is not the word, but just like I love how you do shut off sometimes.
Yes.
You turn off the noise.
Yes.
And when you said that, you've said that to me a couple of times, like, oh, I forget the word you use. You don't say shut off, but you've said I don't know. I literally like just like distance myself, like from it. And it's interesting that you just said you did that when you were younger, which is pretty impressive because as a younger person, you think like you need all of those influences, right? So that may be some like a tool that you have that like maybe sharing that how you do go unplugged. Maybe that's one of the words you said to me at one time. Like I unplugged for the weekend, and I think like the following day I was like, I'm gonna unplug for even if it's a couple hours, right? As a business owner, it's hard to do that sometimes because you want to get back to your clients right away. And in today's world, it's instantaneous. Everybody wants everything like now.
Yeah.
Right? Instant gratification. Our kids, like, I mean, I think that's a lot of the marketing. It's like, you want this? I'll give it to you today.
Yes.
Or,
Amazon it to my house.
Yes.
Like this evening. Yeah.
Right? And then you can start your journey on your belly fat loss or your focus pills or whatever it is that you're going to take. But I do think that we need those tools. We need those tools to be able to quiet the noise and distance ourselves. And maybe that's another episode, but I did want to like stop and like double click on that for a second and say like, look at that, because that is a tool that you have that like it's worth sharing how you do that.
Yeah, I think like anything, you don't do it and you feel the consequences of it. And then I think over the years, and this is part of really the roots of like what I do for my work and what I do for myself personally, is when I feel like, you know, when I feel my best, or what I try to give to my clients is education, is to learn about yourself, to learn about your body, to learn about what it's saying, and then respond to that, to go in versus going out, which I think is very different than a lot of approaches to wellness. And so just practicing that over the years and knowing that I spent years on, you know, whether it was a job or personal, like having anxiety around, I need to be at my phone. I need to be at my phone. I need to be, you know, accessible for this person or whatever. And it created a lot of anxiety. And so what I started to give myself is that awareness of, this is my body's telling me this doesn't feel good. Same thing with the magazines. My body's telling me that this doesn't feel good to me anymore. And I don't even know if it's like a good thing, but like I just turn off. Like I
think it is I think it's a great thing to be that intuitive of yourself, you know, of yourself.
Yes.
Like very internal thinking. And
when you do it, you feel the benefits. Like I have, you know, over the years, probably like 2 times a year, and it is hard because I do work for myself and people do communicate through DMs and stuff like that, like, you know, whether it's booking sessions or whatever. But I also know that ultimately what feels best for me is the most important thing. And then I also feel like that somehow genuinely goes back to my business, because it's who I am and it's what I'm telling other people to do. So I feel like it's a respected thing when I'm like, I'm going off social media for a week, you know, and I'm not accessible essentially. But then when I come back, I'm a little more rooted, and I'm a little bit just kind of like we say to like parents, you know, care for yourself, moms, because when you come back to parent your kids, you're going to be that much more present and enjoy the process versus doing it like completely burnt out.
And be a little bit more aware of what you're listening to and watching, and being able to like, you know, that I feel, and I apologize that we went off in the tangent, but I think that it's a really good point and important, right?
Yeah.
To find those tools that can help you to disconnect.
Sure.
But I also feel that when you disconnect a little bit, because there's times where I've noticed this with myself, like there's times where I get stuck.
Yeah.
It's like you're on this play that's like skipping the record, you know, like you just can't stop looking. Like, oh, that's a pretty dress. And look at what she did there. And in like, you keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and you almost can't stop. And you have homework to do, or you have work to do, or you have studies to do. You have all these things. And in the back of your head, you're stressed because you're like, why do I keep doing this?
Yeah.
And you fall into this. And I think stepping away from it, when you come back to it, you have a better realization like, okay, I need my boundaries. Like I can go on here, I can post what I needed to post for the day. I'm going to give myself 10 minutes. And once that clock says, you know, 10 minutes is up, I'm going to get off and go do what I need to do. And like tools like that, I think are more apparent or come to the forefront when you give yourself a break from The
Yeah.
scrolling, constantly being on there and listening. And
Sure. I think it's kind of like a cleanse from anything in
Yeah,
life. Like you
yeah.
have to kind of completely step away to reset. It's hard to
Yes.
tiptoe around it when you have a habit. I would be curious to ask our listeners, because I know I've definitely been in a place where on Sunday when my screen time pops up, I wouldn't want to share that with someone else because I'm like, holy shit, Liz, like you've been
Right.
on this phone way too much this week. So another tool that I have, and there are tools, you guys, like, you know, they are there when you go look for them. Another thing that I do is I have my timer set on Instagram, which is primarily the social media that I use. So every day when I hit an hour, it pops up, you've been on Instagram for an hour, and I can choose to completely turn off because that's what I say to myself. I don't want to scroll more than an hour a day.
Yeah.
I turn it off completely, or at least I just have something that has stopped me and said, you know what? This is you're not going to get sucked into this hole. And I might say, well, I have these work posts to do, or I have these things, and continue on. But sometimes you need that, like, lift your head up and be like, what's going on here? Like I'm actually using valuable time on something that's not productive or can be harmful. The other thing that I do, and we can talk more about this, is ads. So ads, I go up and I click on the right-hand corner. There's 3 dots, and I say, I don't want to see ads like this anymore. And they say, why? And I say, it's irrelevant or something. It's not reporting the ad. I just say, I don't want to see it. I'm breaking my algorithm. And then I don't see that company, and they say, you won't see this ad again. And they don't show it to me again.
Oh, wow, I like that.
And so you can break that algorithm that you're going through. There was, for some reason, I don't know why it was so much, but it was menopause. It was
maybe because you talked to me.
Ozempic type of drugs. It
Yeah.
was weight loss. I was seeing so many ads, and I still don't really understand because I'm not at menopause yet. I'm not looking for weight loss things, but maybe being in nutrition and wellness, they also drop that in for people. But it was constant, and I just went through one day and said, I don't want to see. And honestly, the change that it made was massive. Like, I wasn't seeing ads like that, or I was seeing maybe 10% of what I was seeing before.
Yeah, that's great to know.
So there are some things that you can do, and you can also tell, like, your kids as well. You know, if they're, obviously kids are vulnerable because they're not fully formed in the brain. So if there are things that bother them, to be able to have some say in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are great tips. And I love the ad one. I'm going to do that myself.
It does. It feels like a little like F you to it. You're like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not going to see you anymore.
Right.
Like, type
But
of
I
thing.
wonder though, like our conversations, if we've had conversations about menopause
Yeah.
and the Ozempic
Yeah.
craze and all of those things, and is it that they're listening
Yeah.
to, not just what you search or what you Google or what you,
100%.
right? So
I mean, I've read things that they're not really listening, like we think they are, but I believe that they
Yeah.
are. I mean, I will be in a personal training session, like you said, and we'll talk about, I want to get this Free People dress for this concert tonight with a client.
Yes.
We'll just be talking. My phone's playing the music for the session. I will open my phone up, and Free People will be like the first ad.
yes, that happens
A
to me all the
million
time.
times. Yeah.
And I can't say either, like I've not done
Yes.
due diligence or research on
Yes.
what our phones or what they're actually doing. But that
Yes.
happens to me all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like you could say David Yurman and
Yeah.
open your phone and all of a sudden there's 16 ads for David Yurman. You're
Yes.
like, wow, how does that happen? But
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those are good tools. And going back to what we're supposed to be chatting about today, you had posted something probably a month ago, and I was like, this is something we really need to have an episode on because it affects us all,
Yeah.
even the ones that can critically think about it.
Sure.
So when you are just speaking to clients about these ads and like, say you're talking to someone like me that's very like in the process of dealing with perimenopause and like the symptoms that you experience, and you want to break it, right? Like you want a fix.
Yeah.
We all want whatever's going on to be fixed, right? Like if you're not happy with the way you look, you just want to fix it. If you're not happy with the way you feel, you want to know that there's a way to make yourself feel differently, right? So you see these ads and they're telling you all these things that you want to hear, and how do you know they don't work? Right? How do you know they aren't the answer to your prayers and the end all be all of what's going on? Like, and I still, and I'm going to say this because I think that people need to hear it, and I would love to hear how you feel about it, but I still, with all the knowledge and all the education and all the critical thinking that I do, knowing that like, and I'll just say this. Yesterday I just reposted something, right? Somebody posted something about the names of sugars are going to change.
Oh, I saw that.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
And I was so mad in the moment that I reposted it. And then I like for a second was like, you didn't fact check that. Where is that coming from?
Sure.
When is it happening? Like all you did was repost somebody else's post. I know nothing about the person that posted it.
Yeah.
I think I actually follow them because you followed them and I saw it like a post that I liked, right? So now I don't know if they're reputable. I don't know any credentials. I don't know anything about them. So right away, I was like, I stopped myself in my tracks, and people were writing me that I posted that like with an angry face, or not that they were mad at me for posting it. They were mad that it's happening, right? And then I like a light bulb went off and I was like, you didn't even fact check that. When is it happening? So then I started to look into it and realized that it was in Canada. It wasn't even in the US. So then I like deleted it and I'm like backtracking.
Sure.
And I'm like, you really should post something apologizing that you reposted that because it was wrong at the time, right?
Yeah.
So in saying that, like, it's so easy for people to be like, I need this because I need it to do that, and I'm going to share this with my friends because not even if it worked for them, right? But like, this is what I'm saying. There's so much that you need to stop and say, like, check these boxes. Maybe we should come up with like a checklist.
Yeah.
Like, what are their credentials? Where did this come from? Is it the United States policies or regulations, you know?
Sure.
So when you did that post, like, and you were seeing these things, what were things like you would say to a client to say, okay, like, put it into perspective.
Yeah.
Let's critically think here.
Yeah. I mean, I think with anything, whether it's a post or someone comes and is like, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about this? I always ask them, how does this apply to you and your needs? Like, tell me what you know about this from that fact check education point versus an ad told me or my neighbor told me who's completely different human body than me and needs and lifestyle. So kind of turning the responsibility back on them, educating themselves, because I do think there are things out there that could help you feel your best or help your skin dryness or whatever it might be that might not help mine or help my needs, or I might not even have that. And almost like these ads are creating an issue. Like, well, I guess I'm older, so my skin looks bad, so maybe I should get skins, like, you know, because I'm seeing ads of people my age saying, do this for your skin, do this for your skin. If you wore Steve Madden slides in 1998, you need to be, you know, doing A, B, and C, like those funny little things. And you're like, oh, I got to do that too.
Yeah.
But so I guess my point is, like, I challenge them in obviously a very supportive way of why do you think this is a fit for you? Like, what makes you feel? And a lot of times the answer is, well, I just want to lose weight, or I just feel uncomfortable, or I just feel uncomfortable in my skin and I want this change. And so then it's an opportunity as a professional to then be honest with them and say, well, even if that product worked, it's not going to work unless you do A, B, and C first, unless you are eating healthy, you are sleeping regularly, you're moving your body every day. Those are the foundations. Those are the things that are already in you that is going to give you your most optimal health. So, you know, just having that honesty talk without shaming or without putting, because I'm not the most educated person on all the things, on all the products and all the shelves. Like, I don't know. And like I said, some could work for somebody and others could not, or some could align with someone's beliefs and, values in terms of a product, and others could not. So I would make it a conversation, and I think that that's the missing point, is these ads are point blank, done, period, purchase, don't purchase. And no one's like guiding you or helping you figure out if it's a fit for you, what the consequences may be of it, what you should be feeling when you're taking it, doing it, like what's the process of this thing that you're inviting in. So I think like if you just have more of a conversation, if there is a professional or an influencer teaching you, I always say with group classes, like if an instructor is telling you, you're going to miss a lot of opportunity. You want your instructors to teach you. You don't want them to tell you to lift and lower your leg. You want them to teach you how to lift and lower your leg, what you're lifting and lowering your leg with, what you should be feeling. If you're feeling this, then do this. So it's the same thing with social media. If you are connected to someone that's inspiring and motivating you, make sure that they're teaching you. They're giving you well-rounded information versus, oh, this feels great. I had my powder today and now I'm off to go run. Like, what's the powder made of? What does it do? When do you take it? Who's it for? Like, all those things. So that's what I would say.
I think questions we should ask ourselves too. And while you're saying all these things, I'm thinking, wow, isn't it astounding that we are so quick to buy, spend our money on, put into our body, not even thinking about what's in it.
Yeah.
Things that we think are going to give us a result that we're looking for without thinking about any consequences at all, right? I mean, we're the same way with food. We're willing to put anything in our mouth, not thinking about it, not thinking about the consequences at all. We actually will spend more money on the products that we want to help us lose the weight or make us look better, or we're willing to spend more money on those than we are willing to spend the money on the good food. We're willing to complain about spending on the food, where we don't complain about the quick fixes and the things. I mean, I bet if we added up all the money that we spend on things that are non-essential, that are actually not doing what they say they're going to do for us, we'd be like shocked at what we spend that we don't get a result from, right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
At the same time, like we're not even the least bit concerned with what it is.
Yeah. I know, like when you think about that, like and a lot of well-intended people, if someone was to say, here's drugs or alcohol, you would maybe pause and be like, I'm not putting an illicit drug in my body, or I don't want to be drunk. I don't want to feel crappy, get a hangover the next day. You would pause and be like, yeah, no, that's not for me.
Yeah. And we have such a hard time doing the work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we don't want to do the work, but we want the results.
Yeah.
And then, and I'm seeing this, like, this is becoming more and more and more apparent to me, that like people that look the part, like the six packs and the, real defined physiques, and they look amazing and they are fit. We associate that with health when it is in fact not health at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
A lot of it's just genetics.
Well, it could be genetics, but you could have a very fit body and not be taking care of yourself the way that you need to, right? You could be eating in a way that you're very lean, but you're not internally getting what you need as far as nutrients go. And so with that being said, I think that when you're seeing these ads, another tip would be stop and think about what it is that you're putting in your body.
Yeah.
And know that there are things in nature that can do a lot of this stuff, and we don't even take the time to actually think about it, right? Like if you think about how much there's anti-aging properties and things in certain foods and, whole foods that we should be eating on a daily basis. Like, why not like put your efforts into that rather than spending your money on something that is going to put you into this vicious cycle, right? So stopping and really thinking about why do I do this?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's that education, taking the time piece to learn about those natural things and how they apply to you. And
there's no ads on them.
there's no ads on
There's
them.
no marketing company that's hired that can say, did you know that kiwi is an anti-aging, anti-inflammatory, et cetera, et cetera. But there are like those very scary, and I don't know how much, we can say like factually black and white on this, but like as far as the statements that are made on these ads, like, and you posted a couple of them when you did that post, like, you see these things like take this pill and you'll get rid of your hot flashes and you'll lose the weight and this specific one was about menopause.
Yeah.
And you'll lose the belly fat specifically and is there any regulation to the way that they market? Like, does anybody need to prove that it does get rid of specifically belly fat, or is just as bad as the wording of cinching your waist and snatching your, your middle or whatever it is what we say now there's no.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would suspect that there isn't, and any sort of trial that they could be like, oh, we're getting everybody at the office to like say that this happened or whatever. There's no like regulation board that they're going through to be able to like justify those like big, bold words. And so, just knowing that when you are stepping into the world of social media, of marketing, of shopping, of consumerism, all of that type of stuff, that their goal is to get you to spend money and will say the things that are playing on your vulnerabilities, like you said in the beginning. In order to do that, that is kind of like the psychological pattern of this. And so if you can take a pause and be like, okay, let me just pause here with this. Maybe I still want this product. Maybe I'm still vulnerable to this, but let me ask some questions. Let me think this through. Let me see how it applies to me. Be a student of self. That's going to be a thread that we will always talk about, is that it's really you're the only one that's going to figure out like what's best for your body. And a lot of times it's through trial and error. I definitely have been on the end of purchasing something that was sold to me because I thought it would maybe lessen a wrinkle or something like that. And so I think the goal is, as you age or as you come closer to coming inward, to really figuring out yourself, that lessens, that you feel more, one, comfortable in your skin, two, you intuitively understand your body more, three, you've taken the time to learn about what your body needs, whether it's through nutrition, movement, de-stressing, all of that stuff, so you can call BS a little bit easier. It doesn't feel as overwhelming because you can kind of separate what is like, I don't know, a moneymaker and what is helpful, because there are some helpful things out there. So
I think one last point too that I want to make is that, and I've heard this, like if something doesn't have a high risk and it's something that is going to make you feel better doing it, right? Be careful listening to other people's advice or experience with those things, because there is a placebo effect, right? And people can have a result from something, not necessarily because of it works, but because the mind is really strong, or because they made other changes during that time, or, so if something is not serving you well and there's risk to it, then definitely, you need to speak to someone that has the knowledge and the ability to give you a little bit more feedback on that. But at the same time, even things that might not be like a risk, that, if you hear drinking lemon water is going to make you, cleanse your mind every day, and I'm just saying this as a joke.
Yes.
So before we all start drinking lemon water every day, but if that serves you and it feels good, like there's nothing wrong with doing that.
Of course.
There's no, damage that's going to do to you. But really think about the things, especially when we're coming down to supplements and pills and, creams and things that may have harmful ingredients in them. You really want to be well informed before start doing anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And ultimately, like we've said, and we'll say a billion times, it's already in you. So trust that, you guys. Go back to those like foundational strengths that we have and support them, because they're going to get louder and they're going to help you feel better. So eating, walking, sleeping, community, all of those things, you have it in you.
Yes.
And we're here to help to support that.
Always.
And if you have questions, feedback, email us at itsalreadyinyoupodcast@gmail.com and follow us, like, share, comment at our IG account, It's Already In You Podcast at IG, and listen at iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Music.